Hello and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is presented by Asher Agency, your all-in-one marketing partner, serving clients across the nation. For further details, check out asheragency.com.
My guest is Andrew Booth. Andrew, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming back. As you and I discussed, you have the distinction of being one of our very few return guests, because when we started the podcast, the one thing I didn't think through was how we're going to have people return, because we talked about everything last time. We talked about your career path. We talked about you moving to the U.S. We talked about MedPro. But what we're going to do today is revisit some things that are new since last time we talked. I think that was about 3 years ago.
Right. Gosh, it feels, we were in this room.
Yeah.
And you were just getting started and we had a nice conversation and
yeah.
I don't know if I can give you anything that's going to be super interesting and fascinating. But
well, you always do. You always do. And one thing I can say is after 3 years, you look exactly the same.
I don't know.
I've definitely, if they say the camera adds pounds, how many cameras do we have on us today?
Well, it is. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So, a couple of things that have happened at MedPro very recently. One that I've had the pleasure of being involved in is the Foundations of Insurance program. And I'll introduce that, but I'm more interested in your description of it. I think it's genuinely to MedPro's credit that the company's looking for ways to help diversify its workforce, diversify the industry as a whole, and partnering with colleges around the country, including HBCUs, to introduce insurance careers to college students. So tell us a little bit more about why MedPro decided to do this and what's happened in the last few years with the growth of that program.
Sure. It is, like you mentioned, it's an incredibly fulfilling program. Yeah. I guess for background, the insurance industry in the U.S. employs about 3 million people. Mm-hmm. It's a large industry. Yeah. It's a very stable industry. And yet we felt like there was an underrepresentation of diverse candidates. So in 2020, we said to ourselves, could we do anything to play a small but hopefully meaningful part? And we came up with this concept of a Foundations of Insurance program. And we reached out to some HBCUs, historically black college and universities around the country, and said, this is what we're thinking. Yeah. Does this fit with what you're trying to do? And there were some schools that were thinking similarly, that they wanted to engage their students and give them real-world experience. Yeah. Insurance is interesting because, as we may have talked about before, no one grows up and says, when I grow up, I want to get into insurance. At least that wasn't true for me. Yeah. So part of what we're trying to do is expose people to the fact that insurance is a very meaningful industry to work in, a stable.
And there's a lot of different paths you can take.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything from IT to finance to legal to HR to marketing. Yeah. Most people, when they think about insurance, they think generally, I think of either an agent or customer service or maybe some claims. But there's opportunities across the board. So we went to those schools and said, would you have any interest in that? And several of them said, yes, we'd love to do that. And so we started off in a few years ago with Fayetteville State University. And now the program has grown to, we've worked with 5 or 6 schools. I think we've taken 225 students through the program. About a quarter of them have joined us for internships, either summer internships or year-round, and we've hired some too. So our goal is to expose some of these students to the opportunities, to give them a sense of what MedPro does. Hopefully that some of them will say, man, insurance is a great industry to be in, or some of them might say, I'd love to work for MedPro. But even if they don't do any of that, hopefully it's a career accelerator for them, and we're grateful that you've been able to help us with that.
Well, and I feel very fortunate to be part of it. It's I said this on Saturday when the last session went through. It's genuinely one of my favorite days of the professional year is when I get to work with those students, because they're just so eager to learn. They're well prepared, and they're curious. They ask really great questions. Yeah. Both, it's funny because my wife Dana has been involved too as a moderator, discussion moderator, and they'll start by asking questions about professional life, but sometimes they ask questions about our personal life, which is very welcome. They're trying to navigate that as well. So it's bottom line is it's super fulfilling. And I think another thing that's commendable that MedPro does is it partners with other businesses to get them involved. And obviously the goal is to recruit students to MedPro, MedPro, but you're also exposing them to careers at other businesses.
Yeah. I think we wanted, insurance is a very diverse industry, everything from different types of insurance carriers to agents and brokers. And so, yes, we want to try and get them to see that insurance is broad.
Yeah.
And if we can, give them opportunities to intern at MedPro, but also intern maybe at some sister Berkshire Hathaway companies or some insurance agents or some other insurance companies in Fort Wayne or some other locations around the country, then we think that's worthwhile.
Well, and one of the most fulfilling and interesting things about it, I think this is the 7th cohort, the one that just wrapped, is seeing students like Rob Couch, who started as, probably knew nothing about Fort Wayne, Indiana, and is now here and he's working for MedPro. And I think that's maybe underappreciated is the fact it's a talent magnet for Northeast Indiana, that you're bringing students from other part of the country here and they're getting their career started in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, we generally hire 2 or 3 types of people. We hire insurance professionals, underwriters, claims, risk managers. They've generally been in the industry in some way for maybe 10, 15 years. We also then hire people that are technical professionals, IT folks, finance, and then we hire people who are kind of starting off in their careers. We have about 1,300 employees, of which about half are based in Fort Wayne, where our home office is. Yeah. And we are always looking to hire. I think we'll hire 150 to 175 people this year. Yeah. And so finding good talent is important to us. And for those that are kind of starting off their career, we work with local universities around the Fort Wayne area, but then using this program to attract the Rob Couches from Oklahoma City or Langston University, I should say. It has certainly brought people to the city, and our interns participate in Greater Fort Wayne Inc.'s internship program as well. So I think it's good.
Well, and there's a little bit of selling the students on Fort Wayne, on the Saturday immersion, giving them a chance to have some fun, spend time with each other and some of your more junior employees so that they understand that, this not only is a great place to work, but it might be a great place to live too.
Well, I had never been to Langston before. Yeah. I remember flying into Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's a cool city. In some ways, Oklahoma City feels a bit like Fort Wayne will become in 5 years. I always felt like it was just a little bit further ahead. Yeah. And if Fort Wayne continues the trajectory that Oklahoma City has, I think that'll be a cool thing. I get on the highway to drive up to Langston, which is about an hour north of Oklahoma City, and I'm with Randy Walker, MedPro's Inclusion and Engagement Leader. We lead this program together. And we're in the middle of absolute nowhere. Yeah. And there's this tiny town. I don't know how many people live in Langston. It's tiny. Yeah. They've just got the university there. And Randy and I are looking at each other going, where are we? Yeah. So when some of these students, some of them have lived in big cities, but when someone who's been around the Langston area come to Fort Wayne, they think they are in the big city. And
Well, and some of them, the first thing they talk about is how cold it is. There was a student I was watching. Right. I was watching her posts on LinkedIn. I think she posted 3 or 4 times, and each one of her posts started with, "It's really cold, but we're having a great time."
Well, we have students here from Arizona in our fall immersion, and they're used to 90, 100 degrees, and we've actually been pretty lucky with our weather when we've done these weekend immersions, which is kind of the culmination of the semester. So yes, it's cold, but I don't think they really have
if you think it's bad now, stick around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're taking a quick break to talk about something that can truly impact your business: the power of public relations with Asher Agency. Imagine having a team of skilled communicators working tirelessly to shape your public image, build relationships with key stakeholders, and position your brand as a leader in your industry. That's exactly what Asher offers. Asher knows how to get your message heard by the right people at the right time. Visit AsherAgency.com for more info.
Well, the program is part of a larger effort, obviously, that to recruit great candidates, get them started on a career. And that's something you and I have talked candidly about. MedPro has always been kind of a quiet company, but there's something else I wanted to get your perspective on that is designed to change that a little bit, and that's a celebration of MedPro's 125th anniversary. So what are you doing to celebrate that milestone internally and externally, and why is that meaningful to the organization?
Yeah, let me start with the second part of that.
Yeah.
So MedPro was founded right here in Fort Wayne in 1899.
Yeah.
MedPro was the first medical malpractice company. And two doctors recognized the need to do something about the growth in lawsuits against healthcare providers, and that was the start of MedPro. Fast forward 125 years, now we're the industry leader by almost any metric, top line, bottom line, financial rating, obviously years in service. And so I think that longevity in any company is important. It's an asset. It proves that you can withstand the test of time. It's especially important in insurance. I mean, insurance is something where you say, you're not, when you buy insurance, you're buying a piece of paper and a promise that if something happens, this company will be there for you. And we've taken that commitment very seriously. And so now we're 125 years later. We have about 350,000 customers, about 2.5 billion-ish of annual premium. And we write business not only in the U.S., but also outside of the U.S. So it felt like it was an important milestone to recognize. So how have we recognized it? Well, we have done a few things. We've created a website that tells a little bit of that story, medpro-125.com. We've created a series of stories for employees to kind of learn different aspects of the 125 year. We did an employee celebration at the Tin Caps Stadium this summer with Mayor Tucker joining us. And we've done some swag items. So we've kind of made it kind of a year of celebration. There's been some news around it, and we think that it's something that is worth celebrating.
Yeah. So, you've been part of that change at MedPro, and you might be too humble to say it, to really get MedPro more on the radar for employment candidates. A lot of your customers are not here.
Right.
They're elsewhere.
Right.
But really trying to raise the visibility of MedPro so it's recognized as a great employer. How far do you think you've come with that? Do you still think you have a lot of work to do, or is most of that work behind you at this point?
Well, Anthony, you said it well, that the vast majority of our customers are not in Northeast Indiana. So that makes us different from some companies that want to be very visible because that's where their customers are. Yeah. Our customers are all over the place.
Sure.
But we felt like it was important that, maybe we should put a sign on our building so people know that, we're not the FBI
I was going to say, if nothing else,
home.
You got the sign on the building.
So we figured that out. And then we have tried to do a few things, whether it's through media, whether it's through some billboards, whether it's, we give to dozens and dozens of charities, to say that Fort Wayne wants to be one of those kind of, cornerstone companies in Fort Wayne. How far have we come? We've come a good way. I think we'll continue to do more. I don't think, MedPro will ever be the most visible of Fort Wayne medium or larger size company, but we're happy with the progress we've made.
Well, and you're part of a brand of sorts in Northeast Indiana of the InsurTech companies.
That's true.
That you're surrounded by some other great brands that are helping make this become an attractive place for people who want to pursue those careers.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Northeast Indiana is a hub for specialty insurance with really good companies that we don't compete with. I mean, maybe occasionally we might compete on employees, but that doesn't happen very often either. Yeah. And so there's a huge ocean, and it's pretty cool that this part of Indiana is known for being an insurance hub. I mean, we're not Des Moines, we're not Hartford, Connecticut, but it's pretty cool that Northeast Indiana does have such a strong foundation of good insurance companies.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to the 125th for just a second to get some perspective from you. So some of the folks who are listening to this, they may have a milestone ahead. Maybe their company, maybe it's just a 10-year anniversary, maybe it's a 20. What do you recommend in terms of, because you've had to think about all the things that go into planning for that year and developing content. What are some things maybe you learned along the way that might be helpful to someone else who has this on the near horizon?
That's a good question. I think let me maybe suggest a couple things.
Yeah.
The first is we decided that we wanted a theme for all of our communication effort, and we called it a legacy of trust. Ultimately, our customers are trusting that when it matters most, we're going to be at our best. And so it felt like a legacy of trust was really got to the heart of why we exist.
Which, if I can interject for a second, is consistent with when you talk about MedPro, you say you're really caring for those who care for us.
Right.
And that works nicely with that theme, if you will.
So I guess that was the first thing. And that kind of anchor of thematic anchor permeated through almost everything we did, visually, our stories, press releases in the website. So I think the first thing is, what do you want to say? And it's not just what you want to say. Does it really resonate why you exist? So I think that would be an important thing. And then we just said, okay, throughout this year, because it's a year event, how do we want to think about multiple tactics, communications that are spread out, and then figuring out who's the audience for that. So we kind of grew, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago, kind of put that all on a grid and said, okay, this is kind of what we're going to do. And I guess the third, so I think having a theme, thinking about the tactics and the audience, and then giving yourself enough time to plan. When you're creating an animated video that tells the story of 125 years, that takes a minute.
Yeah, it's not just going to happen on its own.
So I think, giving yourself a bit of time to plan.
Well, and that's great advice, because, it's a rare opportunity when you get to authentically celebrate one of these milestones. We're in the middle, or I should say at the tail end of it, with our 50th anniversary.
Right, congratulations.
And well, thank you. We'll get to 125 someday. Yeah. But, it was kind of like, we're only going to have one shot at this, so let's get it right and let's use every opportunity we can.
Well, someone said to me in passing, so how are we celebrating our 200th anniversary? I said, I don't know, and I won't be there to observe it, I don't think. I mean...
yeah, we'll worry about that one later.
That's right.
Yeah. So what else is on the horizon for you? What are some of the things now that you've got, I don't want to say they're completely behind you, because Foundations of Insurance continues, and obviously you're still, wrapping up that 125th year, but what are some of the other major things that you're focused on right now?
Yeah, I mean, insurance is pretty cyclic business. So there's a lot of things that we do, and they just kind of, happen year in and year out. And that's everything on the marketing side that I lead, our communication side, and also on the kind of internal kind of HR side of things. We continue to push forward in digital engagement and social media engagement. We're continuing to try to get smarter on, we spend every dollar, how we spend it, and what kind of return on that. And that's really incremental as opposed to, just these massive breakthroughs. But I think when we look back for a few years ago, we're light years ahead of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and understanding, how it's going.
Yeah. While it's incremental week after week, look over to the course of months, and it does make a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, more generally at MedPro, I may have mentioned this before, but we're owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which we think is the best owner for insurance and one of the most trusted companies in the world. Berkshire gives us no top-line goals. Warren essentially says if you set yourself a top-line goal, you're going to meet it. And it's only half the equation, because you've got to be able to grow profitably so that you can be there to meet your commitments to your insureds, 1 year, 5 year, a decade, and then to be, dramatic 125 years later.
Yeah.
What that means is that MedPro will continue to grow. I think we have, but we don't have the same type of top-line pressure, which can sometimes force you to do things which don't make sense for your customers or don't make sense in the long term.
Yeah.
So when you say what's on the horizon, I don't think that there's anything dramatic that's on the horizon. We want to continue to do what we're doing, and that has served us well over 125 years, that kind of long-term mindset. Yeah.
No, I think that's great too. A lot of companies in today's environment are thinking quarter to quarter, and they're sacrificing the long run in the gamble. So I think there's something to be said for that. One of the reasons you've been around so long is you do look for that incremental growth, but not trying to set the world on fire every single day.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined MedPro, I've been at MedPro for, by the time this comes out, I get to probably almost close to 15 years, which feels like a long time.
Yeah.
But MedPro was maybe a third of the size that it is today.
Yeah.
So it's not like we haven't grown and evolved.
Yeah.
We didn't have an international business. Now we insure most of the hospitals in America in one form or another. We didn't really do that. So we've embraced new opportunities, but it's only been where we felt like we could be the industry leader over the long term as opposed to reactively jumping in and out of things.
Yeah. Very consistent with Berkshire Hathaway, right?
Right.
It's long haul. And I'm sure all of this is exactly what you had in mind when you were studying music at Taylor University.
Yeah, I know. Exactly, Anthony. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the connection between music and malpractice insurance. I haven't figured it out. But we talked about the Foundations of Insurance Students program. I mean, sometimes you just don't know the way your career path is going to go. I kind of stumbled into insurance, and it has been a wonderful industry to be in. Both in terms of the people I work with, but also just it intellectually challenges me, and it's given me the opportunity to take on new challenges and a little bit of music on the side.
Well, and it's a really important message for younger folks, the college students you work with through Foundations of Insurance, because they look at someone in your position and they assume you've always been there, right? And to remind them that as long as, and there's a through line here with MedPro, as long as you're making incremental success and moving forward, you don't have to take huge leaps every day, but little things you can do to improve yourself, you'll be amazed at where you can end up 15 or 20 years down the line.
I think that is well said and really true, and it's not always even. You have some seasons where things kind of accelerate and some seasons where you feel like you're a bit stuck. But I think generally, if you're willing to work hard, be a good teammate, do well with that, with what's been given to you.
Yeah.
Most of the time, over time, I think things tend to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and surround yourself with as many good people as you can.
No doubt.
I know you've got a great team, and I'm fortunate to have one too, and fortunate to work with your team, and that makes a big difference. Covers a lot of my gaps when I work with the right people.
I totally agree. And going back to the beginning, I mean, when I joined MedPro's marketing team, maybe we talked about this before, but there was like 2.5 people. Yeah. Now we have a team of over 20, including a bunch of really great interns.
Yeah.
And I don't know I've done a lot right, but I have hired people that are smarter than me, and that's served me and served MedPro well.
Well, that's great, and I really appreciate you doing this. It's been a lot of fun to catch up and hear what you've been up to lately, and maybe we'll do it again in a few years.
That sounds great.
All right, well, thanks, Andrew, and thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.
And now, we'd love to hear from you. Is there a question you wish we had covered? Please let us know. You can reach out to us at hello@asheragency.com. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps others discover us as well. For more resources and updates, visit our website at asheragency.com. Thanks for listening.